I put out so many videos because we need to continue to have these conversations and we need to see how all of this is interconnected. What the patriarchy is fighting against is women had too many freedoms. Now that we have the freedoms, financial freedoms and reproductive freedoms, the men's are failing and flailing. That's why Brandy said, wait a minute. We need to put two major issues together. Why are right wingers worried about the birth rate collapse, but have nothing much to say about men not working? I feel like there is something crazy here that people aren't talking about. I know people have mentioned that men aren't working, aren't educating themselves or working, but the right wing's primary focus seems to be women not breeding. I have been saying for a while that this birth rate issue is just rage bait for them because they don't seem to be taking it seriously except to threaten to take away women's rights. Women are the only ones willing to educate themselves and willing to work. So I don't know how society thinks that's going to work out. At this point, we all know that babies anchor a woman. Babies sit a woman down. And what they really want to do is connect women to a man, connect all of us to a man, because otherwise they are failing and flailing. Because these men were promised a wife appliance and children, and without their wife appliance, they simply cannot create their own purpose for themselves. So that is the reason why they are focused so much on the woman, because they have to strip our rights back, because these men, without having the rights to oppress us, they're not doing so well. So they're not trying to make these men improve because they don't seem like it seems like a losing strategy to try to make them improve. So now we're going to go back to JD Vance. Yes, we're going to continue to talk about this because this man is simply saying what a lot of these people are thinking, that women have too much freedoms and they're not being anchored down. So JD Vance in 2021, we have to go to war against the idea that women don't have to have kids. Donald Trump's VP pick, JD Vance, said in 2021, we have to go to war against the idea that women can decide not to have children, suggesting that someone who focuses on building their career instead of making babies will be a sad, lonely, pathetic person. In an interview with The Federalist in May 2021, Vance was asked what he thinks conservatives can do to encourage Americans to have more kids. He suggested cultural messaging is key. To be a little stark about this, I think we have to go to war against the anti-child ideology that exists in our country, said Vance, who is currently the Republican senator from Ohio. Though he generally didn't specify the gender of the childless people he was criticizing, the context of his remarks made it seem he was primarily speaking to women. Citing a conversation that had recently unfolded on Twitter, Vance described a ridiculous effort by millennial feminist writers to talk about why there are good reasons not to have children and how some of them were glad they didn't have kids, and even to encourage people who had had children to talk about why they regretted having children. He ripped these unnamed mediocre millennial journalists and suggested that if they're advocating for women to focus on advancing their careers over making babies, they are pathetic. Not enough people have accepted that if they put their entire life meaning into their credential, into where they went to school, into what kind of job they have, if you put all of your life's meaning into that, you're going to be the sort of person who asks women to talk about how they regret having children, Vance said. He added, you're going to be a sad, lonely, pathetic person, and you're going to know it internally. The GOP VP nominee went on to say that people who have had children have actually built something more meaningful with their lives, and that is why we have to go to war against that ideology and the people behind it. Vance brought up his sister, Lindsay Lewis Ratliff, who he says sometimes wonders aloud if she should have waited to have children. Lewis, who is 5 years older than him, got married and began having kids while Vance was still living with his grandparents. She is now a mother of 3. Sometimes, she'll say things to me like, maybe I should have delayed having kids. Maybe I should have went to school, Vance said. And it's like, Lindsay, you've been a great mom. Your children are happy. They're healthy. And in that, He didn't say anything about her happiness. It's all about the children because women are simply incubators without thoughts, feelings, the need for accomplishments or achievements. It's all about being an incubator to the kids. People like my sister should not feel like the cultural messaging is your life is inadequate. The people who are sending that message should feel that their life is inadequate. And of course they do. They're just too ashamed about it to talk about it. Ratliff recently pushed back on people criticizing Vance over other comments he's made about women and families, specifically his claims in 2021 that childless cat ladies are miserable and have no direct stake in America's future. Ratliff called Vance a testament to the women in his life. JD Vance was raised by some of the strongest women I know and went on to marry an incredibly strong woman, she said in a statement to CNN on Saturday, referring to the candidate's wife, a brown woman, Usha Vance. The attacks from the media and Democrats that assume anything otherwise is vile. Vance's insistence that women make babies doesn't seem to extend to supporting women after they have children or to women struggling with infertility. The Ohio Republican has referred to the idea of universal child care as class war against normal people, and in June he voted against the Right to IVF Act, a bill that would have ensured women have the federal right to access reproductive technologies such as IVF. So, all of his stances are in alignment with Project 2025 that believe that in order for a woman to have a family, she needs to be attached to a man. So, and then they keep putting the onus or putting the spotlight on families, but it can't just be a family of a single mom or a rainbow family. Absolutely not. It has to be a man and a woman in the family with children. It can't be, and this whole right to IVF, they can't really push IVF because then women could have babies without a man attached. And you can't have that either. That still gives women way too much control. Republicans do not like children once they get here. They do not like social safety nets or anything that props up mothers, especially if they're single mothers. They voted against summertime lunch programs for impoverished kids. They have that bootstrap mentality. They don't give a damn about the kids once they are here. And we can't even mention how they feel about the mass school pew-pews. So once the kids are here, it's like you're on your own, kid. But even still, the whole money situation, they're like, once the kid is here, you got to figure out how to pay for that kid. They have no social safety nets. They don't want to fund child daycare. They don't want to fund healthcare. They keep saying no, no, no to everything that would actually help parents that have kids right now. So why should child-free or childless people go and try to have kids when they keep cutting social safety nets for the people who have kids currently? For far too long, the financial responsibility, as well as all other responsibilities, has fallen strictly on the woman. Child support is inadequate or isn't enforced at all, and Republicans have said you got to figure it out. So like this person says, men like to sidestep accountability by saying close your legs. Republicans have said the same, close your legs, but now they're having a hard time dealing with the reality of what it means when women do close their legs. We're currently in find out season. The birth rate has been falling. The child-free community has increased. Women without children, they're an increasing demographic. And I don't see that stopping. So they're going to have to figure something else out. Continuing to strip women's rights is not going to work because women will figure out a way. So, all right, y'all, join the conversation. Let me know what you think about this and how it all is working together hand in hand. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Yesterday, one of my subscribers had come to one of my posts to give me the breaking news that Paul Dans had stepped down from Project 2025. We know that Trump and his team have been trying to distance themselves from Project 2025, and they came out strong with 2025, talking about all of the things that they planned to do once they got a conservative leader in 2025. So who the heck were they talking about if they were not talking about Trump? Kevin Roberts, who is also part of Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation, put out this tweet last week. This was just last week. He says, under Paul Dan's leadership, Project 2025 has completed exactly what it set out to do, bringing together over 110 leading conservative organizations to create a unified conservative vision motivated to devolve power from the unelected administrative state and returning it to the people. This tool was built for any future administration to use. When we began Project 2025 in April 2022, we set a timeline for the project to conclude its policy drafting after the two-party conventions this year, and we are sticking to that timeline. Paul, who built the project from scratch and bravely led this endeavor over the past 2 years, will be departing the team and moving up to the front where the fight remains. We are extremely grateful for his and everyone's work on Project 2025, dedicated to saving America. Project 2025 will continue our efforts to build a personnel apparatus for policymakers of all levels, federal, state, and local. I look forward to leading this team to continued success. So Harlow asked this question to Kevin Roberts. He said, if you are like most conservatives that believe in smaller government, Project 2025 is exactly the opposite of what you want. Project 2025 is for those who crave theocracy, led by a president with fewer checks and balances. Don't take my word for it, read the documents yourself. Todd says, if you want to return power to the people, why are you trying so hard to take away personal freedoms? Please help me understand how that makes sense. It does not make sense. They do not believe in personal freedoms. They believe that they should be able to rubber stamp the personal freedoms that people are allowed to have. Jack says, Kevin Roberts, Donald Trump abandoned you. Paul Dance tucked tail and ran. You will too. Okay, so now let's get to this article about Paul Dance quitting. This one is from the BBC. Project 2025 leader quits conservative think tank. The director of the ultra-conservative Project 2025 has stepped down, saying he will now focus on getting Donald Trump back into the White House. Remember, Donald Trump says he does not know this person, but he is about to focus on helping Donald Trump. Paul Dans announced he will leave the Heritage Foundation think tank, which published the document to direct all my efforts to winning bigly. Project 2025 proposes, among other things, hugely expanding the powers of the U.S. president, gutting federal services, restricting access to abortion, and large tax cuts. Trump has said he has no connection to the policy document and does not agree with much of its contents, which was written by a team including several dozen former members of his administration. Yet he doesn't know these people. Electoral season is upon us, and I want to direct all my efforts to winning bigly, he said. To everything there is a season. He said Project 2025's policy platform was always expected to be finalized around the time of the Republican convention earlier this month. We completed what we set out to do, which was to create a unified conservative vision united behind the cause of deconstructing the administrative state. This tool was built for any administration dedicated to conservative ideals. He added that other members of the team would continue to put Project 2025 and its recommendations in a place to be of best assistance to the new conservative administration in November. Project 2025 advisory board member told CBS, the BBC's U.S. news partners, that it would submit work, including a database of potential hires and a list of policy recommendations to the former president's campaign for review. Mr. Dans worked in personnel-related roles in the first Trump administration, including as chief of staff at the Office of Personnel Management. At Heritage, he organized policy and personnel recommendations and training for appointees in the next presidential administration, according to the think tank's website. Ongoing Project 2025's defining document, its so-called Mandate for Leadership, has drawn intense media scrutiny and liberal opposition since Trump became the Republican nominee. It is not uncommon for Washington think tanks to propose policy wish lists for potential governments in waiting. However, there is much overlap between Project 2025 and the Republican Party's official platform, as well as the rhetoric of some of its most visible figures. The 922-page document sets out 4 main policy aims: restore the family as the centerpiece of American life. And remember, a family is a man and a woman in a household with kids. You cannot be part of the rainbow community. You cannot be a single mom. You can't be a single dad. That's what the American family is. Dismantle the administrative state. They want to cut many many departments from the federal government. Defend the nation's sovereignty and borders, nationalism. Secure God-given individual rights to live freely. They want to implement the God-given rights that they rubber stamp, nothing more. They want a theocracy. Among its proposals are bringing the entire federal bureaucracy under presidential control, dismantling departments of education and homeland security, slashing federal money for renewable energy, halting the sales of smorgasbord pills, sweeping tax cuts. In response to Mr. Vance's announcement, Trump's campaign reiterated that the former president was very clear that Project 2025 had nothing to do with the campaign, did not speak for the campaign, and should not be associated with the campaign or the president in any way. Reports of Project 2025's demise would be greatly welcomed and should serve as notice to anyone or any group trying to misrepresent their influence with President Trump and his campaign. It will not end well for you. They are really pushing back against this. Vice President Kamala Harris, the presumptive Democratic candidate, said that Project 2025 isn't going anywhere. This is his agenda, written by his allies for Donald Trump to inflict on our country, her campaign manager, Julie Chavez Rodriguez, said. Hiding the 920-page blueprint from the American people doesn't make it any less real. In fact, it should make voters more concerned about what else Trump and his allies are hiding. Now I'm moving to this Salon article. Trump's attempted rebrand of Project 2025 is failing. Don't be fooled by staffing shifts. Trump has every intention of implementing the Heritage Foundation's vision. The Trump campaign issued a very weird statement yesterday, disavowing the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, again, as campaign managers Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita put out. They've been trying to get them to shut up for some time. President Trump's campaign has been very clear that Project 2025 had nothing to do with the campaign. Okay, I just read this. The Trumpian threat at the end was a nice flourish, but they do mean it. The professional campaign's frustration with the group has been obvious ever since the Democrats jumped on the 900-page manifesto and made it into another Trump-branded product. No matter how hard the Trump campaign tried, they couldn't get people to stop talking about Project 2025. Myself, I have made several videos and posted it on multiple platforms, and I will continue to do so. Trump has personally tried to distance himself from the project, calling it appalling and extreme at times, and claiming he didn't know anything about it, even though his own running mate, JD Vance, has extensive ties to the organization and has even written the foreword to Heritage President Kevin Roberts' upcoming book, Dawn's Early Light, Taking Back Washington to Save America. As has been thoroughly documented, most of the people associated with Project 2025 are Trump administration alumni, such as his former housing secretary, Ben Carson, trade advisor Peter Navarro, White House advisor Johnny McEntee, and former director of office management and budget, Russell Vought. In fact, one report showed that 31 of 38 authors and editors of the 900-page tome had been on Trump's team at one time or to continue to be. This is not surprising since Trump and his MAGA movement have devoured what was once the conservative movement of which the Heritage Foundation was the founding institution. Conservatives are MAGA now, or they are no longer relevant. As much as he pushes back, we're going to continue to push it to the front. This Project 2025 without their conservative leader would mean nothing. We know that this is what they're trying for, and we're going to keep talking about it. Join the conversation. Please continue to share these videos. Make your own videos, but continue to share.